Welcome to Paladin Financial Talk. I'm your host, Jeff Quick, and I'm here with my esteemed colleague, a gentleman and a scholar, Mr. Tony Shore.
I don't know about any of that, honestly.
Neither do I.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a crazy good. I don't even resemble that introduction at all. But Jeff, I'm excited about the show today, man.
Are you?
Yeah, I really am. It's an interesting one. It scared me a little bit. The word FAFSA is in the title, and I've gone through that process so many times with my 3 college-age kids.
I can imagine, and I know last week Zach and Ellie were on talking about some college-related topics as well. I think that was more government-related, ways to maybe get some college rebates, stuff of that nature. So we're kind of rounding that out today with a little more talk on the really exciting topic of FAFSA and student aid and all that great stuff.
Well, you know what? Student aid and paying for either helping your children through their college years or whether it's for yourself, it is important. And I think this is a great topic you've chosen. I'm just surprised that you're awake enough to go through this, because didn't you come to the show today? You came to the studio directly from an annual compliance meeting, didn't you?
I did. And it's one of my favorite topics, Tony. But yes, an hour and a half of compliance. It was amazing.
Yeah, I don't know if you're an 80s music fan, but I always think of, I made up a little, he blinded me with compliance.
Robert Dolby?
Thomas
Dolby.
You almost got it.
I was close. Close.
Yeah, it was she blinded me with science, but I think he blinded me with compliance.
I like that.
Because I peeked my head in there, and I'm like, I thought of that. I wanted to yell it out, but I refrained. Yeah. I don't know if they would have appreciated that at the GS compliance meeting.
Yeah, they're not the most humorous ones.
The compliance folks, they take it seriously, which is what they need to do. So I guess we should jump right in, right?
Why not, Tony? Why not? And, before we get to the fun topic of FAFSA, and again, try saying that 3 times real quickly, right?
FAFSA.
Well, you're a professional.
It's not easy.
I wanted to talk about a few options that could take place before that. Several options for saving for college prior to needing the resources. Some of the most popular college savings vehicles, we're mostly familiar with 529 plans. We have Coverdell Education Savings Accounts. And then there's custodial accounts, UTMAs and UGMAs, regular savings accounts. There's a lot of ways to save prior to you or your children or grandchildren attending higher education. And sometimes those aren't necessarily reached, or you're not able to fully fund those goals.
Ah, okay. Yeah, and that's important to understand. Obviously, you want to have goals, you want to be able to fund them, and college, wow, it can really derail it, can it?
Yeah, it's getting more and more expensive as we know.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, 529s, I said, Tony, they're the most popular. Those are state-sponsored, taxed advantage plans that are specifically for educational expenses. There's tax benefits such as tax-free withdrawals for qualified education. They do have relatively high contribution limits, so it is a great way to meet those future costs. So there are some advantages. Nearly any accredited institution will accept funds from a 529, and they're an excellent choice for long-term college savings.
Yeah, I know we have a couple of 529 plans for our children, and we utilize those, as you know. There's good and bad. I think it's just one tool that's out there to use, and it is a good one. There are tax benefits. The money comes out tax-free, so correct. I like that.
Yes, that is the major benefit. There are some other options. Coverdell ESAs are another tax advantage option. There are some differences. There is a little bit more flexibility with those in that you can use them also for K through 12. If you have a child that's is potentially going to private school or some specialized school, you can use that for those, which is more difficult to do with a 529 plan. So there's pros and cons to both of those.
Yeah, so Coverdell ESAs, that's what they're called?
Correct.
Interesting. So I'm not familiar with those. That was never presented to us as an option when we started this years ago.
Yeah,
for
and
our kids.
it's mainly the low contribution limits that hold people back from those. You can put a lot more into a 529 plan. So
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense then. That
Yep.
makes sense. So obviously, I think this is really important. That's helpful information for our listeners. And moving on, what can you tell us about custodial accounts?
Sure, these are a little bit different. There's UTMAs and UGMAs, so Uniform Transfer to Minors Act. So the major difference, they're very simple to set up. They do allow you to transfer the assets to a minor, and you're able to retain control over those assets, depending on which state, up until the age of majority, which is typically between 18 and 21 years of age, again, state dependent. However, once they reach that age of majority, those assets do become the child's, and now they can do whatever they would like with those assets. So some people like the idea of that. Hey, I want to leave some money for little Johnny or Susie, and they can do whatever they want for it. I hope they choose to use it for higher education. But if that's not in their path, I still want them to have the funds and be able to do what they would like with them.
UTMA and UGMA.
Correct.
Are those the two German twins that live down the road, or is that, or is that a Pink Floyd album title, Uma Guma or
Yeah,
something?
it could be.
Yeah, that's funny. I love these acronyms, right? That always gets me, but it is important. So these custodial accounts provide flexibility, but they aren't necessarily earmarked for the purpose of college savings, is
Correct.
what you're saying. Yeah.
Correct.
So for those who might not want to use specialized accounts, can regular savings or investment accounts work for college savings? Or would you ever recommend that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, if you're on a short time horizon
Yeah.
and there might not be a lot of benefit to investing that money in the very
Sure.
short term, and you want to make sure the funds are there. Savings account, especially with the higher interest rates today, can be a great short-term solution for that.
Sure.
So there's a lot of different vehicles out there that make sense. And again, the benefit of those is there are no limitations on what those funds can be used for.
Yeah, and I like that. You know, with the 529, it's very explicit. It has to be for certain things.
Correct.
And it's all directly college related.
It is. And I don't know if you're familiar or not, Tony, but we did just pass the Secure Act 2.0. So one of the great benefits of that with the 529 plans is if the person those are assigned to does not use them for higher education, they can now be converted to a Roth IRA over time. So it's not a complete loss if they don't use those for higher education. So that was a very a positive impact of the Secure Act 2.0.
And another thing it did, correct me if I'm wrong, I wanted to ask you about this, Jeff. Didn't that also make it so you could use 529 money for lower education? Like you said, I think you referred to this earlier, you could use it for even high school and other things
You
like
can
that?
use it for other things. Now, they're becoming more and more flexible. You know, the longer they're in existence, people do find other reasons, good reasons for them.
Sure.
And with the high cost of college, more and more kids going to vocational schools and
Oh, yeah.
stuff of that
Sure.
nature,
Yeah.
they're making them more and more flexible.
That's good. That's good. And that's great information on different ways to save for higher education because it's outrageously expensive.
It's
Our
getting
daughter
ridiculous.
said, I want to go to St. Thomas, right?
Sure.
When she was a junior in high school. And we said, no, we can't afford that. And we don't want you taking out loans. You would have, it would be astronomical what she would owe.
Yes.
And you're going to graduate with a business degree or what, and then you've got all these loans. What job could you possibly get to justify that cost? Well, she went out and she got a scholarship.
Oh, good for her.
Covered full tuition, the whole thing.
Very nice.
Yeah. So she went to St. Thomas, but she would have never got it, she would have never went there. We said, no, we're not paying for it. So.
Yeah, sure. Well, congratulations to her and congratulations to you
Yes.
as well.
I don't know who was more excited. I think we walked around pretty giddy for a while on that one because, that's huge, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just we're just saving $44,000 a year after her the scholarship she would have gotten, the top I think it still would have been around between $35,000 and $44,000 for tuition.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's real money even to you and I, Jeff.
Well, yes, definitely, definitely. Yeah, and the tricky part is a lot of people like to save for their students' college, fund
Yeah.
that. Very few people are able to save up enough to pay for the entire cost through that,
Right.
which brings us to our next topic,
Okay.
right? Your favorite 5 letters, right? FAFSA.
FAFSA. FAFSA. Yeah, it's hard to say correctly. It took me a while. That scares me because it is. I don't know how the average person figures it out because it is confusing. It is complicated. There are deadlines. It's tricky. You fight with the website. You have to have all these usernames and passwords. So I feel for the parents out there that have to deal with that. I mean,
Yes.
I've been dealing with it for, a number of years now with my children.
Yeah.
So.
And most people do deal with it, and it does stand for free application for federal student aid.
Uh-huh.
So even in order, Tony, to get things, so it's any type of funding that's going to help students pay for college expenses. This could
Right.
be in the form of grants, right, scholarships, loans, work-study programs. It's really crucial to be able to complete that because a lot of scholarships, you need to also have certain income levels to even have an opportunity to earn some of those. So in order to qualify, you need to complete a FAFSA.
That's true. Yeah, and it is. And so obviously we need to dive into this. It's the free application for federal student aid, as you said. Explain a little bit more about it. Why is this so important?
Yeah, well, it's just a standardized form that's used by the Department of Education to help determine eligibility for different types of loans, grants, scholarships that may be out there. So they're going to gather information on your family's financial situation, calculate the family's expected contribution based on your income.
Right.
They're going to expect you to be able to contribute so much,
Sure.
whether you want to or not.
Right.
There's a certain
Yeah,
amount
yeah.
you should be able to pay. And so it plays a huge role in determining their eligibility. Colleges, states, private institutions, they all award financial aid based on the FAFSA.
Yeah. So you have to fill that out. It's so important. And I know some schools, their student aid office provides help if you need help with it.
Yes.
I know it can get confusing.
Yes.
So I think we finally got the process down after 3 kids, but yeah.
Well, you do it once. Hopefully, a lot of the information is repeated for the
Yes.
following years, and you're able to do that. It does start. You can do that as soon as October 1st, which is right around the corner here.
Oh, that's true.
So the earlier you start, the better, because it could come back with errors. You may have questions on it. It could take more time than you intended to. So applying early is going to increase your chances. Gather all your financial documents, tax returns before you start. Accuracy is super important. Any mistakes could delay the eligibility process. And if you have questions, like you said, you can reach out to a financial advisor like ourselves at Paladin, or a lot of the colleges and institutions have people in their financial aid office that will help as well. And keep in mind, if you don't have this filled out right away, you could miss out on some scholarship and grant opportunities because other people are going to be ready and apply ahead of you.
Yeah, that's Jeff, that is a critical thing. And I know this from experience. You have to fill it out. Do it as soon as possible, as soon as it's available. So October 1st, didn't you say?
Correct.
Yeah, and accuracy is so important, obviously. And you have to be accurate and do it early.
Yes.
And that is, you have to do it. It's not, this isn't optional. You have to do it if you want to your child to have an affordable education. Or if you're a young person out there, if you want to get more of your college paid for,
Yes.
And you not out of pocket for you or your parents, or for parents for you and your kids, you got to do the FAFSA. You got to fill it out as accurately as possible. You have to figure it out. You have to get it done, and it's going to take longer than you think it is.
Yes.
And you're going to need more information than you think you'll need. But do it once it's done. It's a lot of fun. For my youngest daughter, who we just did it for, we were shocked at what came back. I mean, there were things that she was eligible for and got
Sure.
that our first two kids didn't get, and we
Yeah.
were surprised by that. So
Yeah.
I think that's important. So moving on, what are some of the common sources for student aid?
Yeah. So there's really three main types of aid, Tony. We talked a little bit about them. Grants and
Yep.
scholarships, which
Yep.
that's typically free money, right? That doesn't need to be repaid.
Yep.
And then you have different types of federal loans,
Right.
which will be repaid, of course, with interest, of course.
Yes. Yep.
And work study programs where your kids can get job opportunities, typically through the college, the administration, where they can commit to working a certain number of hours to help pay for that tuition throughout the year. One thing I want to go back and make sure people are aware of, if you know your student is going to require some type of financial aid, that should always also be taken into consideration when determining how you want to save for college, whose name the money should be in, because that's all going to count differently on the FAFSA and could make them eligible or ineligible for certain grants and scholarships and loans based on your resources and your child's resources. So you want to make sure you work all this stuff ahead of time and as early as possible to make the best plans for you and your family.
Yeah, good advice. That's really, really good advice. And I think, what about scholarships, though? I know there's a lot available, and you always hear these stories. I always read about all these scholarships that go unclaimed, or there's so many available. What about scholarships?
Yeah, scholarships obviously are great, right? You do not have to pay those back, and you can offset at least a portion of the costs. So a couple things you can do. One, reach out for different scholarship opportunities through your college, private organizations, high school. Prior to going to college or committing, a lot of high schools have scholarships from various alumni that have left behind, maybe for soccer players or volleyball, something they participate in, speech. There's a lot of different small scholarships out there, and the key is doing your research, looking into these organizations. There's a couple of databases out there, FastWeb or scholarships.com, where you can find scholarships that are available with different criteria. They're all different eligibility requirements, so pay attention to that. And again, start early. Look in all kinds of different places. Ask people. I have a gentleman my son plays hockey with. He happened to have graduated from the college my daughter goes to, and he's always looking for people to give that money to from his firm, because they have alumni. And so they're looking for students that meet certain criteria, and sometimes they have trouble finding them.
That's amazing. I've heard that as well. So, and there are so many lists and so many options out there, like the scholarship that my daughter found at St. Thomas. It's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. You never know what's out there, but you have to put in the work. Some of them require the student to write a few essays, go through some interviewing process, but in the end, that's worth it. I mean, a few hours put in to apply for a scholarship is nothing compared to tens of thousands of dollars off your education.
Absolutely. And if you think about it this way, in general, people are typically lazy, for lack of a better term, right? So the more work required to apply for a scholarship, typically the less number of applicants there are applying for that. So you're increasing your opportunities, and it's good to learn how to do that and go through that process anyways. It's a great thing to be able to do, to write and to complete an application like that. So
yeah, it is. It's good experience to have to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be better down the road, and that'll help you. You know, I would tackle the if you have a scholarship opportunity that requires a lot, go through that process first if you can, and then you can utilize some of those same skills as you apply for other scholarships.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a great discussion. Are there any final thoughts you have on this financial aid process?
Well, yeah, Tony, and this one relates to exactly what you said about your own daughter. You told her you couldn't afford to go to a certain school. Well, remember, financial aid is designed to make education accessible, so don't be discouraged by the high costs of college. Start the planning early, as we said. Apply for as many scholarships and grants as possible. Fill out your forms properly. The FAFSA make sure you have all the details. Get that done as early as possible. Look for guidance from people that maybe specialize in college planning. financial advisors, the financial aid office at your chosen institution. There's a lot of different resources out there. Make sure you take advantage of them. And remember that education, it's an investment in your future. And with careful planning, you can make it a reality.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Now, if we have any listeners out there who have any questions about this topic or other topics, whether it's retirement income planning, whether it's Social Security maximization, IRAs, investments, market volatility, IRAs, Roths, 401ks, or student loan planning, how do I pay for my child's, how do I save for my child's education? That's where you come in, Jeff. How can our listeners get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, you can call us at any time at 651-842-8406. Any one of our advisors will be happy to speak with you. That's the best way. You can also find us on the old interweb there, Tony, at our new web address, paladinfinancial.com. Which is exciting for us. Right? We just recently acquired that, so easier to find than ever. And we also have seminars you could attend as well to learn more about all of these topics, and that's listed on our website as well.
Excellent, Jeff. Great show today. Great topic. I love it. It hits close to home for me, and I'm sure for a lot of our listeners out there. And listeners, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for viewing. That does it for today's episode of Paladin Financial Talk.